Pledge allegiance.
Right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order.
Guys.
This is a regular meeting of the City of Milton Planning Commission. I am Peyton Jamison, Chairman. This is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on rezoning, use permits, concurrent variance applications, comprehensive land use plan and plan map, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. I'll introduce our board members. To my left is Fred Edwards, Samit Shaw, and Paul Moore, and to my right is Mark Bittner and Wilson Borden. The petitions will be heard in the sequence listed on the posted agenda. I'd like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for conducting this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. The opposition will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided time remains with the allotted time. The staff of the Community Development Department will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Each speaker must fill out a speaker card before speaking and leave it with a staff member of the Community Development Department. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. When an opponent of a rezoning action is made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating more than $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of the relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and have not timely filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak on your behalf. Each application has been properly filed with the Department of Community Development. Signs have been posted on each site. The matter has been advertised and notices have been mailed to property owners affected by this zoning as required by the Milton Zoning Ordinance. The Planning Commission's recommendation will be forwarded to the City of Milton Mayor and City Council for final disposition. The Mayor and City Council hearing will be held approximately 3.5 weeks from this hearing on the third Monday of each month at 6 p.m. in the Council chambers. The Community Development Department has reviewed each application in conjunction with various agencies and departments, both internal and external to the city. Staff's recommendations, findings, and conclusions are here before us in written form, which has been made available to all petitioners and to the public. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, dialogue with the person speaking, or outbursts. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. All remarks will be addressed by the Planning Commission. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the Planning Commission during the meeting unless requested to do so by the Commission. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the Commission in consideration of your application should be submitted to the staff of the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the Commission. Finally, to the applicant, if your petition is deferred in accordance with the Milton Zoning Ordinance, you are required to update or obtain a new sign for reposting. Failure to update or repost will result in further delay. There are no exceptions. At this point, this is a moment for public comment. Do we have any public comment, Robin?
No.
Okay. Close public comment and go to approval of action minutes.
Okay, I have the March 22nd, 2017 Planning Commission meeting minutes, and Sumet made one correction with the time of the meeting, so you should have it in front of you, corrected.
Okay.
I do have a problem. Members present.
Okay.
I was here and was left off at the top.
Okay. Yeah, I will put you in.
Thank you.
You didn't say enough that night.
Yeah,
You
right.
you
You
didn't
noticed?
qualify.
Yeah, right.
I think when I put the time for Sumet, I kind of deleted you by accident. So.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
right.
You have to
thanks for
keep
calling
the-
me out there, Robin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling me out
You have to
on the
understand, we have a tradition here. You come in late, you get your, we call it out. Okay.
I move we accept the Planning Commission action minutes of Wednesday, March 22nd with corrections.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Okay, great. The next item is T 17-01, VC 17-03, 1 and 3 Verizon Place by Verizon Wireless, by Troutman Sanders LLP for a proposed rooftop antenna and concurrent variance to allow rooftop antennas and associated structures to project more than 10 feet above roof lines. So in preparing for this item, it was, I found out a couple things, that there are no concurrent variances for new telecommunication facilities. This is the first time we've had a telecommunication facility under our new, which isn't very new anymore. It was adopted in 2009, telecommunications ordinance. So that was one issue, and then another issue was we discovered that the distance, one of the development standards requirements is a new facility to be 3,500 feet from an existing facility. It's closer than that, and therefore there is an avenue for which the applicant can ask for what's called a waiver instead of a variance, and so everything needs to be re-advertised, and we're recommending deferral, and the applicant's representative is here for any other questions if you might have it.
Any questions?
I have a question for staff. So Robin, so it's not a variance, then it's going to be a waiver?
Right.
That's new to us?
It is. Like I said, this is the first time we've had an item come under this new telecommunications. So.
Well, but not even to telecommunications. A waiver is new to us in its entirety, correct? We've never dealt with a waiver before.
Because it's only in what we've dealt with it's only in the telecommunications ordinance. It's not in any type of zoning, because the telecommunication is not in the zoning ordinance. But you're correct. We've never done this before.
Okay, so is a waiver going to be a new vehicle that only will apply to this, or will apply to other?
No,
parts of
only
our
for the
ordinance?
telecommunication. It's only for new ones. So, for instance,
For new ones, what?
new telecommunication facilities, whether it's a tower or antenna, that's how the ordinance is set up, that they have to ask for a waiver. It's not a variance. And what's very confusing, you'll see on the council agenda on the 5th, there'll be another telecommunications modification, where it's like a drop and swap, where they're dropping and swapping on another parcel at Staten Air Conditioning over on Highway 9. So the way that portion of the ordinance was written, it was written to allow for a concurrent variance. So you're going to say, well, wait a minute, this is getting a concurrent variance. Why can't this? So that's the reason. It's the ordinance is very specific for new facilities. Even though it's just an antenna that's 13 feet tall on top of a roof, it still has the same requirements of a new 150-foot monopole large antenna.
Yeah. Even though we're calling it a new facility, it's just a new
Antenna.
addition to it's just an antenna going up.
Right, but under the definitions in the Chapter 54 telecommunications, antennas are also included under telecommunication facilities, and that's how it's worded, that any new telecommunication facilities need to be meet certain criteria.
So facilities is a more encompassing word than we might understand it to be otherwise. It's not
Correct.
a new building, obviously, in this particular case, because
Right,
it's just
so
an
it would
antenna.
include, the leased area with any kind of boxes, as well as an antenna, so the whole gamut, so.
Does a waiver, in its definition, hold any more or less strict requirements than a variance?
So I don't know, I'm not the expert on waivers, and maybe the applicant's attorney, since they deal with waivers more frequently, can answer that question. But I would say that you have the ability, if you wanted to, as well as the council, to make recommendations for additional conditions. So it's just another word for a variance, I believe. And
Well, as long as, I'm less interested in the applicant's attorney's measurement of that word than I am about our own city's attorney.
so
measure
and
of
the
that
reason
word,
why I
but-
say that is because there's no definition of waiver, and in fact, there's not an exact procedure of how to ask for a waiver. We had to get advice from our city attorney and say, well, how do we deal with this? So that's why I'm acting a little ignorant on it, because
Oh, no, you're doing a great job of answering my questions. I know we're not going to get all the answers tonight because it's new, but I'm just giving you some things to think about with that. And then I would also propose, in the same line of questions to the attorney, why are we suggesting waiver versus amending the ordinance to allow for a variance to be considered. And, the measures of the two words and the definitions thereof, making sure that we're not opening a door wider than we want it to be opened when we have been very careful about what to do with telecommunications.
Well, all I can say is that when this ordinance was created in 2009, it was fully vetted through the city attorney's office and their experience with that, so.
I remember, I was a part of
yeah,
it. Yeah.
Right. So I can't really answer, and I'm not sure, I'll try to get
No,
some
but I'm
more
just
answers.
proposing, in the line of questions you're asking going forward, please, if you would, clarify that with him. Why waiver versus variance? Why would we modify the ordinance to allow for a waiver versus modifying it to allow for a variance?
And I can get that information. I suspect it has to do with, that's just the way that, because it's a federal, it's all very, as you well know, it's very highly regulated, or that
Yeah.
they have a lot of, the telecommunications has a lot of leeway on things, so.
Yeah.
But I will ask the question of the city attorney.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for
Yeah,
our guest applicant?
Does the city fall under this same requirement if they were going to build, let's say, a police tower or
I will say
communications
that
of
we
some
would
sort,
want to
9/11
meet
tower?
all of the requirements. I'd have to look into the ordinance to double check. But even in zoning, when we build buildings, this building is built exactly to the ordinance requirements, as if it was a private entity that built this building.
Right.
But I would have to get back with you. I don't want to tell you something I
it's
don't
just-
know. Yeah.
It goes back to what you're saying, only a little further, whether it's a waiver or a.
Yeah. And Robin, does this, is it being measured this way? I remember I didn't go back and read it in preparation for tonight, but I remember in the ordinance, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the placement, the screening thereof, the heights, lots of restrictions on antennas in particular, whether it be monopole, large, small, dishes, et cetera. And this apparently falls outside of those parameters by.
Correct. I think those were antennas that were, a radio. It was that's kind of oxymoron. But I do remember those discussions about with the Deerfield form-based code and trying to address it. So this antenna is specifically categorized as a telecommunication, so it comes under that requirement.
Okay.
So. Were you able to review the photo simulations and okay, so.
Robin, I've got one question about that. So that it says paint it black or the color of the roof,
Correct.
but in the simulation, it seems to be painted the color of the building, which I thought was fine. The pictures were great. But that's probably picking nits. I don't know if that makes any difference or not.
I don't know.
It's just
The
something
design
I noted.
review board had the photo simulation pictures when they reviewed it, so I can't really speak to exactly why they chose the black or to roof color, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. Does the applicant want to come up? Right? Are you any more questions? Yeah.
You came all this way.
Good evening. I'm Jen Aylwine. I'm an attorney at Troutman Sanders and representing Verizon. This is some Verizon antennas.
You have your address just for the record.
Yes, 600 Peachtree Street at Suite 5200 Atlanta 30308. These are some antennas on a Verizon building on Verizon-owned property. If anyone's familiar with the site, it's heavily landscaped. You will not see the antennas from outside the property. Basically, there's so much going on that site that it's pulling off the capacity from two nearby towers. And so that means that those areas are not getting good service either. And by locating antennas on top of our building, we can direct all of our usage, which is a lot, and Verizon headquarters, all of their usage just to those antennas, and it will allow for better service on the two towers on each side. So it'll greatly improve coverage and capacity in that entire area and the further surrounding areas. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I have propagation maps I think you all already received that show the lacking coverage right now. And just by simply putting these antennas on top of the building, we'll be able to improve that. As to the black or white, we're happy to paint them whatever color you guys would like. Generally, people prefer the white because they think it blends in better. That's why we went with that. At the design review board, a couple of, actually I think maybe the city architect was the one that said that he maybe would prefer black, and that's what they ended up voting for. up to you guys. We're happy to paint it whatever color you'd like.
Hey, would there be any way to show, since we didn't see it, what the black ones would look like
Yes,
versus the
I
white ones?
sent photo simulations of the black. I'm sure that.
Oh, did you?
Robin
I only
can
saw the
get out
white
to
ones,
you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me see if, I'm not sure if I have the black in here. I know I sent a copy out, but let me see if I have them electronically. If not, we can certainly get it to you before next month. Let me see if these are the black too. Oh, yeah, I do have a copy of the black. If, with permission, I'm happy to pass it all
Oh, sure.
around. And then again, that's just a preference thing. Usually people like the white. We don't have a
I
preference.
think the white looks better.
While you're looking, mind if I ask
Oh,
you a
sure,
question? Is there a reason that it's 13 feet on that particular antenna and not 10 like the ones that are there now?
Sure, it's just, basically the way it's decided is the height of the building, and they have to
Yeah,
down tilt
that's
it so
it.
it gets coverage all on the ground, and the 10-foot just wouldn't provide enough coverage. The type of antenna they need right now is 13 foot, that's how the equipment is made. And that would provide the latest technology. The 10-foot antennas were what we saw a little bit more in the past, but right now the 13-foot is what we need to really provide that service. And that's how they're engineered.
And does the new antenna, if it's placed there, does that then make the other antennas that are there obsolete? Do they come out of?
We don't have antennas right now
I thought there
on
are-
the building. So we're adding these antennas on the building.
I thought what I saw was unless it was just, maybe what I was seeing was
Was
what you
the
were depicting.
plans? Yes, sir. So we don't have them. So this is going to, and I can show you guys this right here. It's this is our propagation map. So you see, basically, you can see there's a hole. Yellow isn't good. There's just a hole right there. That's the Verizon building. And see these other two towers over here are stretching to kind of fill in that area. And by putting these antennas on top of that, we're creating a whole new coverage area here. So it provides coverage to that area, and it also makes these not stress as much to try and cover that area. It's really good. But there are no antennas currently on top of the building.
I
And then
misunderstood.
you saw the construction drawings that have the proposed antennas on there.
And you all have the propagation maps in your packet, so.
Yep.
And there's a penthouse on the building, so the antennas themselves are actually lower than that. They're higher, they're 13 feet above the roof line, but there's a penthouse, already on there, so they're not the tallest point,
Yeah.
actually.
So, I mean, there's a parapet, so you don't see the whole 13 feet, and then like she said, is that there's these penthouses, which are just coverings of the mechanicals that are higher, than the actual roof.
There's already stuff higher
Yeah,
than
that
this.
are, yeah.
Makes sense. And it's a hugely landscaped property, so again,
it
the only
is.
people seeing it are Verizon employees, and they want them up there. So there's been obviously no objection there.
So on, this doesn't say which building I'm looking at. Is it a single location on each of the two buildings that you're
There's
proposing?
two, let me pull out my,
Yeah, I think there's 2 on 1 and 1 on 1.
Okay.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I think it's on my, if you look at the second or third page, I have a diagram of it showing.
The site plan, and you can see here, this is, I believe, one Verizon place. There's
Yep.
two on each there, and then there's one here. And that's basically because the other tower that I said was stressed is over here and over here. And so by putting them on those corners, it will relieve from this congestion from the tower over here and the tower up here.
And you,
Find a place where they are.
and you said that the antennas are going to be not necessarily directly upright? They're going to be leaning, did you
They're
say?
always, yes, the antennas are always placed a bit tilted, and that's so that they go to the ground or to vehicles. You don't really
I don't
notice
think
it
you
from the
would
ground.
notice it, yeah.
Yeah, that's just, and any antennas on any of your towers are always have a down tilt, and that's so that's directing
Yeah,
towards.
I mean,
towards-
towers are different than buildings.
Yeah, the antennas located on the towers are at a down tilt.
So all of the antennas are going to be 13 feet?
That's right.
And basically now, when you are doing these in the other jurisdictions,
Generally, I mean,
Generally
yeah,
speaking, they're
that's
all
what they're
13 feet.
manufacturing. Yeah, that's what they're manufacturing right now. And, technology's changing so quickly. I mean, 3 years ago, 10 feet was the norm. But I think the 13 feet, they just get so much more coverage and capacity for all we're doing with our phones that's what the antenna manufacturers are making right now. So I think you'll probably see more of that, I would anticipate.
is there another way of relieving this issue versus putting more antennas up?
No, a tower. No one wants a tower, right? Wouldn't you much rather have the antennas on top of the building to direct all the traffic? Yeah, I mean, we need another site here. By locating antennas on this building, we're able to cover it and not have to build a monopole on its own. Most everyone would love, would prefer that option. Antennas to a new tower.
And to your point, as the technology continues to change, there is going to be a point in time when these may be less valuable because maybe a newer technology.
Yeah.
Would Verizon be willing to remove those then?
Oh, absolutely. We would go through the modification process, which I think
Right.
Robin mentioned, and you have another site that's on
Right.
the city
Yeah, you
council's
can
agenda for
modify.
that. And we do that all over on all of our, constantly we're doing modification projects. They're always trying to upgrade, to have the latest technology. And because you guys have Verizon headquarters, you will most certainly have the latest technology because they're going to want to have it at their home site first.
Right.
So in your city, the ordinance has a process for that to go through.
So currently, there are no antennas on top of these buildings,
On that
correct?
building, right.
So, and I don't know if this is in the scope of our questioning, but when you put antennas on top of these buildings, are there any other issues that we need to think about in terms of and I don't even know all the technology terms, okay, so I'm just speaking, you know more about it than I do, but in terms of there's residences around where these buildings are, how does this, putting antennas on top of a building affect residences and whatever's being projected from the antennas to get service, and, how do we handle, how does that work with residential, places around
Right.
that are close to the building? Is that something that you take into consideration, or the city takes into consideration in approving, putting antennas on top of buildings that are close to, residential development?
So I think the closest residential is Deerfield Townhomes, Lake Deerfield. And I believe it was 400 or 500 feet to the closest building. So, I think because of the so much heavy vegetation that exists, and as you saw, a lot of the balloon tests and simulations was done during the winter, so you didn't have the spring and summer foliage out. But we do look at that, but I think it's, as you see it in the simulations, it looks pretty camouflaged. It would be hard to see.
Are you asking about aesthetics? Or are you
I'm not
talking
asking about aesthetics, I'm talking about,
Oh, the technicality, or the
whatever's being
Well,
made.
yeah, the radiation or whatever that's
I'm
coming
sorry.
from that in terms of that,
So,
and how close it can be to a residential,
and I'm happy to answer that. So all of the FCC reserves the right, federal government reserves the right exclusively to regulate all sorts of FCC emissions. And so we get that through our applying and obtaining our FCC license. And so under the 1996 Telecommunications Act, it actually only the federal government can make decisions based on emissions because they feel like they are better suited to be able to kind of have that across the nation and the same standards apply everywhere. So it is, with no disrespect, a bit outside of the local government realm to consider that. You're welcome to consult the city attorney about it, but that I think is the
It's not
short end on
outside
that. And we
our-
get our license through the FCC.
Right, but to Shamit's point, yes, the federal government may regulate that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to be good partners of Verizon. So let me make that clear. We're glad that they're here, and we appreciate what they contribute to our city, but we also want to make sure that we're sensitive to the needs and concerns of our citizens.
Sure.
And so please don't take offense to the questions, because we want to make sure that we're protecting both you guys as an entity that we want to have here, but also our citizens that put our elected officials in place, and we're volunteers supporting that. But so to Samit's point is that you may be compliant with the federal requirements, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the distance that you're suggesting here is compliant. So that's one of the questions you might be asking is, are we meeting the distance compliance for putting up a new tower in the distance from these residences? It's one thing if you're going to construct a brand new pole and the citizen then has to make a choice about, am I going to choose to live there or not? In this case, they were already there, and now we're going to add a pole on top of these buildings.
Right.
So I'm assuming you would intend to meet the federal requirements.
Absolutely.
of
We wouldn't have
emissions.
we can't put up the antennas without our FCC license. So without a doubt, we have to have an FCC license for every single site. But as far as health effects go, and Robin certainly can follow up, with the city attorney to kind of give you guys it's a very it's a very straightforward line, something that is federally reserved, and so it would be better for you guys to consult him on that. But I assure you, we meet all the federal requirements.
Okay.
It's the best response I can give you.
So now, do you already have the FCC license, or once, if it were to get approved, at that point,
That's
you would
right.
apply for the license?
Yeah, we have an FCC license for the area, and then once it gets approved, then we would just add these antennas to it. There's actually no specific setback requirements for the FCC license for antennas on top of buildings like this, so there would be no issue in getting that obtained. So, and we just basically submit it to the FCC, they review it, make sure, and then add it to their database. And so then the next time we come up in Milton, when we pull all of our FCC licenses, these sites and antennas will be on there as well.
But in general, like with the FCC, do you know, I mean, is there a certain requirement as to how far
There is not.
an antenna can be from a residential location, for instance?
There is not. No, and just as a little, like my side note of learning, doing this for 14 years from Verizon, you actually, and believe me or not, but you actually get more radiation standing in front of your microwave than you do at the bottom of, standing at the bottom of the building or standing at the bottom of a cell tower. They have such incredibly low emissions and low radiation that it's actually, your microwave produces much more than the tower itself. But please verify that. Don't take my word, just take my word for it.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have some more for staff.
Okay.
No.
Staff, any questions for staff?
Robin, is this, once we get this clarification on waiver versus variance, is it considered a one-time waiver?
Well, it's specific to the specific request. So, I mean, if they come in for another building and another request, then if they could ask for another waiver, just like for any normal variance. It's not, I mean, they need to build it, and and if they are granted the waiver, then they build it to 13 feet. But let's say if they want to add to another building or if they want to add another antenna, then they're going to have to come back and do the same process, so, and ask for another waiver.
And is this like, is it like a land use exception where if it's granted, it's not then precedent setting where others can come behind it?
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I can ask the attorney, but I can't speak to that.
In the conditions that are applied, can we limit the number of antennas on this building, or is it just in the application they're asking for these specific antennas?
Right.
It will limit them to these specific antennas and not any more.
I would have to consult the city attorney. I don't want to tell you that you could or couldn't limit them, because I have no idea. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I'll be happy to check before the next meeting.
And Robin, isn't the condition site plan specific? So it's just
It
those
is,
antennas
right.
that are shown
It
on
is,
our site
yeah.
plan.
So that's what I'm saying, but I can't say that if they came back and said, hey, this is working really well, let's add it to a second one on one of the buildings, we would make them come back and do a new applications. But I don't think you could say no more ever again, can you have another antenna? That's just common sense, but I will be glad to ask
Good.
the attorney.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I want to make sure
Right.
that we do or don't have those kinds of limits.
Right.
So, and do we have the ability in the conditions to limit the height? If they're asking for 13 feet, and we're going to be realistic about that, if it's 13 feet, 2 inches, I'm not going to be concerned about that, but maybe limit it to something less than 14 feet or 15 feet.
Well, they've applied for 13 feet, and that is what they're requesting, and so that's, if you choose to recommend that waiver, then that's what you would say. And if, let's say it comes in at 13.2, then,
Right, we would just say it's maybe not to exceed 14 feet is the way the language would read or something.
well, the problem is right now, how we would advertise the waiver would be at 13 feet. So to give them more than 13 feet would be outside of the boundary of the waiver request.
Okay.
So,
All right, I guess, and then the last one I would have would actually probably be more of a city attorney question too, about the ability to hold them accountable to remove the antennas if the technology were to change, they were going to put something new up. Could we, from an aesthetic standpoint, require them to move the then outdated equipment?
I mean, and I don't think that there would be a problem, but I'd be happy to ask, because we also have that existing for towers that once they're not being used anymore, they have to be uninstalled and
Commissioned, yeah.
decommissioned.
Yeah, and same kind of thing. If the technology advancements come where they can accomplish the same kind of efficiencies with a lesser, smaller antenna that's less intrusive, then we would look forward to that. And then the ones that are requested in this waiver would then be removed. Okay.
Robin, I had a question about the distance relief. So was there a reason why we had, that the facilities could not be 3,500 feet? They had to be at least 3,500 feet from each other?
That's how the ordinance was written.
But was there the reasoning behind why it was 3,500?
I didn't personally write the ordinance, so I can't really say. I don't know if that's a typical distance. I can check on that, but I don't have a reason exactly why it was
Again, I didn't know
3,500.
if it had anything else to do with, just having towers and radiation and what other reasoning could be behind.
Typically, to be honest, our ordinance, I don't think, is written in the way specifically for antennas. So I think the intent was for a monopole, so you don't want to have a bunch of different monopoles sprouting out everywhere. So that's really, I think, the intent, I believe, is for a standing monopole tower and versus an antenna. So that's something that we will probably look into to try to make a little differentiation with. We'll ask the city council to see if they're interested in that. Trying to make it a little bit more not so cumbersome to ask for an antenna, because basically the applicant has had to submit application as though they were building a brand new monopole, 150-foot, whatever, normal. So anyway.
And can I add that the tower that we're requesting the waiver from, we are located on. So as Robin said, in most every other ordinance, it's tower to tower is a separation distance because you don't want to have too many towers together. But this antenna that's nearby, we're already located on that, and it's not providing enough service, and that's why we're trying to come back in to provide the citizens of Milton additional service, because that one's just not cutting it. So.
But I don't remember, Paul, when we spent all that time, that this footage thing, I don't recall even a discussion on it, do you?
Well, to be honest, I think you might be speaking of when we were talking about the Deerfield form-based code for different type antennas versus this wireless telecommunication was pretty much all written by the city attorneys, and it was kind of came in as a package. I don't remember that we really tweaked very much of this ordinance, Chapter 54, because to be honest, I think we weren't even reviewing things that were outside of Chapter 64, which is the zoning ordinance.
And that ordinance was passed 8 years ago, so if you think about how you used your phone 8 years ago, you probably just used it maybe to call at most. It wasn't texting, surfing the internet, doing so much, so you didn't need quite as many antennas closer together because all it was calling. Now we're doing so much on our phones that we're having to fill in these holes and pockets so that we have enough capacity to meet our customers' needs. So from 2009 to 2017 is a huge swing in the usage of our phone, and I don't think the ordinance has been updated to reflect
Not
that.
significantly, no.
And that was going to be another question in terms of this, and what you're saying, the technology with the antennas. So in general, I know you are kind of representing Verizon, but in general, are a lot of the telecommunications companies who are using antennas, are they now all 13 feet?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Robin.
This is the first application we've had for a rooftop antenna, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But
don't know
just in general, like being in the industry and.
Right. I mean, we order our standard antennas from the same companies that T-Mobile and the other carriers do. So I think it's just the technology and the way they're designing them. I mean, so I would imagine, but I don't ever get to see the AT&T or T-Mobile plan, so I can't speak to that directly. But we all use the same tower manufacturers, and we all want the best service for our customers. So
Okay.
I feel.
And, I mean, the reason for my question, Robin, is that, again, that may be another thing to look at. And,
Sure.
if the technology is now that it's basically they're all 13 feet and we've still got 10 feet.
Correct, yeah.
Well, Paul, if you'll remember, at that time when we were having all the discussion was we didn't want towers at all.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think
that's where.
I think, Fred, I think that it was just because it was new to us.
Yeah.
And we just missed that part of the
Right.
conversation at that point in time.
Yep.
I don't know that it was a mistake. It was just an oversight.
Sorry.
Because we didn't have reason to address it at that point.
We're just glad it's not a tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, this would be a good one, right? Usually people are very happy about rooftops.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? No. All right, I'll open up for a motion. And they're requesting deferral.
Yeah.
I move we defer, what is the title of this one? T17-01, VC17-03 to, Robin, is it being advertised for the next meeting?
I think it's June 28th is the date.
Okay.
You could just say the June Planning Commission meeting.
To the June Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, that's it.
Thank you very
Anything
much.
else?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up here. Thank you. So I just wanted to, I know it's not on the agenda, but just on your dais is a package of paperwork. So for your per diem or your payment for each meeting. So you have two options. Either you can waive wanting to be paid, which is fine, or if you want to be paid, all the paperwork needs to be filled out and returned to me. And it's also going to be retroactive, I believe, from January or February meeting, so.
You want to go over the point that we had discussed, maybe making a contribution
Yeah.
instead of, and according to the city attorney.
We really can't do that,
We
right?
can't do that. This was discussed at the city council meeting
We have
when
to
they.
do it on our own.
Yeah, they came up with every kind of solution or possibility, and it's just, they've done lots of legal work and research, and this is the only way to do it, to be paid, so.
So how are the payments going to be made? Is it a check or is it a?
So
is
you can,
a-
it looks like you can have direct deposit.
Uh-huh.
So it's in the paperwork if you want direct deposit, so that's how it would be done.
Or can we opt for a paper check?
I will ask about that, probably.
The reason I'm just going down the path of what if we opt for paper checks and we come to the meeting and get the paper check and then we collectively donate our checks as we see fit that way.
I mean, by waiving it, we're kind of donating it to the city, right? That's the way I
Right.
see it, is I'm donating $50 to the city by
Yeah,
waiving it.
I don't want to do that.
I'm with you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd rather
I'll
have
fill
the
out
opportunity to
I'll
direct.
fill out the paperwork.
Who gets the charitable tax deduction? I'm just joking. I mean, pretty much y'all, someone.
What you're thinking of is collecting the checks and then,
We'll have to deal with it on the
Our own,
side, on the
but-
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I'll ask about, I don't see why you couldn't have paper checks, because we
Well, it's
issue
just-
checks
it's-
every
it's
other
just
week all the
one
time.
path to still execute what we're talking about doing.
Yes.
Where
Yeah,
I'm
makes
with
perfect-
you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
you can endorse them over.
So,
to-
yeah, you just give us the money
We
and then
can-
we just give it to a
Yeah,
charity.
and we can endorse it over to a charity, we can endorse it to the fire department,
Yeah.
we can endorse it to the police department.
Right.
Well, I do, and I think actually there is, and you guys may know more, but I do know there's a charitable arm to the, to the public safety department. So there is a
Yeah,
501(c)(3), so if that's what you wanted, you wouldn't really give it back to the city, you would give it back to
Milton's first responders.
something like
or
that,
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah. But
It's fine.
if we just do a waiver,
Correct.
it's like saying,
It goes to
don't
the
don't
city.
pay us,
Correct.
rather
Right,
than
no,
having a
you're
chance
right.
to redirect it.
No, yeah,
So,
no, that makes sense.
I guess you can find out about paper checks. I'll hold on.
We'll just
I
hold
won't
on that.
Hand anything in until we find out, and then I'll.
yeah, can you just email us about
Yeah,
that
I'll find
answer?
out, yeah.
Then
I
we'll-
suspect we can. We cut checks every week
I'd be
for our vendor. I can't
sure.
understand why we wouldn't be able to do it. I think they just assume people would be good with direct deposits.
And even if you just did it once a year, maybe twice a year or something, instead of doing it every month. Just
Right.
Well, yeah.
Get two checks a year, just instead of having to sign over, whatever.
So.
And is it, Robin, is it only the official the official planning commission meeting? Or if we participate in the
It's only for the actual meeting.
It's just a planning
CPAC, or do
No,
you
it's not,
participate in
no.
something else? Okay.
It's just for the actual meetings.
Let's have a
for-
special call meeting.
Yeah.
Every day, special call meeting, tomorrow.
I got another staff question.
Then you'll get taxed. Right now, you only at 600, so. you won't get
I don't
taxed on it.
remember the reason, or I need to know the reason, that there was a vote by city council relating the planning commission, which was denied.
Oh,
What was does anyone remember what it was that,
They changed it down to 16 houses, but then.
no,
No, this
that's
is
on,
different.
this is different.
had to do with major and minor plats. Our authority.
Right, so at the last, so
thought
what
you
you
were
all
talking
did,
about-
I
Yeah,
think
well,
back
no,
in
no,
April or March, it would have been March, I believe, when you had the plats and, before you, the plat process, and you had recommended that the planning commission make approval or denial of a plat. And so once those recommendations were presented to council, the council deliberated and they made a vote for you to have a recommendation instead of a denial or approval. And the actual denial or approval is really done by Kathy or, by the community development director. And if for some reason she denies the plat, then it goes as a variance. They can appeal, as a variance to the city council. And so that's how the amendment ended up.
Yeah, basically we were all insulted
Yes.
during that meeting, so just go back and watch it. I have a different topic.
You good? No, you
I got one more.
Okay, go, shoot.
My favorite, on Hopewell,
Okay?
not my usual favorite horse farm.
Yes, I noticed that the other day as you come out on Bethany Way or Bethany Bend that comes out on Hopewell. Yes, I saw that about 2 days ago.
Not my usual one. The
Oh,
one
that's,
across,
oh, okay.
no, well, that's,
Yeah.
you guys are dealing with them, I think, on an ongoing basis. But the one across the street, the great big yellow horse farm,
Okay.
has now moved, like stanchions that I think were intended to be decorative, maybe for all the different services that they provide. At one point, they were maybe inside the facility.
So the little yellow house farm,
Well, so it's the great
yeah,
big with the
the
big
big one.
10,000
It's not-
square foot
right,
riding
exactly.
ring. and
It's
all
not
that.
little, but I know,
Yeah, it's
the
big
yellow
one.
house.
So they moved these stanchions that are basically advertisement. It's signage
Okay,
to their driveway outside the gates.
okay.
And they're not unattractive, but they're inappropriate for what our ordinance reads.
Okay, I'll have it checked into.
There's one on each side of the driveway.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just noticed the other farm, it was a little obnoxious.
Yeah, it's always a little, it's always a lot obnoxious.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else or any other?
Anything else?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?